Hi guys, and welcome to the Bridge Views. Today we have Clayton Parker here. He is a business owner with over 25 years of experience opening restaurants throughout the US and Asia. Today we are at Tangs Oriental Asian Pub, located in Dunwoody at Politan Row. Clayton, hey.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, thanks for coming in.
Yes, thank you for having me. I was really surprised when I saw this. So I had came here a few times, but you guys weren't open yet.
Sure.
And then you were open and I was like, an Asian Oriental pub is very interesting because when I hear pub, I think of Guinness, which you guys have.
Absolutely.
And I just think beer. I'd never had the Asian correlation. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the food was amazing. And I was like, we need to do an interview. Like, this is so great. So thank you.
Yeah, here we go.
I want to start off with some personal journey and backstory questions.
Okay, bring it on.
So what's one lesson from your childhood that shaped how you run restaurants today?
A lot. First of all, I think it all started with my grandmother and my mom, but certainly my grandmother cooking a lot at home. And of course, I was a sports guy as a young kid.
Okay.
However, I always enjoyed the kitchens, always. And I spent a lot of time with my grandmother cooking and coming up with dishes. Sometimes were creative, but they weren't the best. So that's when I decided to explore a little further.
That's super cool. Yeah. And then how'd you come up with Tangs Oriental, like Asian pub? Like, how did you get that mesh?
Having lived in Asia for a very long time, we started doing Irish pubs there because that was the first, and I knew what Irish pubs were and all that. So we decided to do Irish pubs in Asia all around. We started in Hong Kong, but went to Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, China, doing lots of Irish pubs. However, a lot of my good restaurant Asian friends from different countries used to always say, "Hey, Clayton, we've got pubs here too, but we were here first," and on that story. So I kept digging into what they were doing, and sure enough, they had the TV monitors showing sports. They had lots of snacks and dishes to serve. They served a lot of draft beer. That was a big deal, and it was an atmosphere. It wasn't so much about the beautiful decoration and a fancy restaurant. It was about the atmosphere. And so my kids were growing up and I decided to move back to America. And I realized there's no Asian pubs here.
There's nothing here. No. I would have never known that was a thing.
Right.
Because I know you guys incorporate the sake and your bar is immaculate. And you guys have a really nice menu with all your drinks and your food. But I just didn't understand the infusion. Right. But it's great to know that that's something that they're already doing.
Yeah.
And then you just brought it to us.
That's correct. That's right.
So you've been called the fixer. What's the wildest restaurant turnaround story you've been a part of? With over 25 years of experience, I know you have a few.
Quite a few. I will say that the hardest part probably for us in Asia being in the restaurant business was the short-term rents. They were short-term, quite tough, expensive. So often we would find restaurants. First of all, I had some friends that the restaurants weren't working that well and the rents are so high. I helped two of my friends help rebuild their business a bit, made a little bit more creative, a few more ideas. And that helped a lot. However, when sometimes a landlord would approach us and say, "We got a restaurant that's completely closed. Would you like to take it and change it and do something different?" And that's another reason why we fixed the space that was already there to something that was much better. Obviously, it's decoration, it's the food, it's the whole concept, the brand. So we did a lot of that also in Asia because of the short-term rents.
So was it almost like a Gordon Ramsay when he goes in and fixes the restaurants? You were like a bar rescue type of vibe. You were just going in and fixing it up and bringing it back to life.
Well, I didn't have quite the
budget,
and I certainly did not have the
TV,
the team, and nor did I have the attitude that he had. Although I liked those shows; they were good fun.
Yeah.
And I know that's TV shows, and I'm sure he does a good job with that. But we did that mostly for helping improve our business without attitude, of course.
Yeah.
And other people's that we did that with. We did quite a few of those.
That's amazing. I know you always hear like restaurants are kind of volatile when coming to invest, and it can take anywhere from 5 to 7 years to get your return. So that's amazing that you were able to like go in and kind of bring those restaurants back to life. Would you keep any of the staff or anything?
Absolutely. In fact, we did a whole series of Thai restaurants. It was Cafe Siam, one of our best groups. We did multi-units of those everywhere else except for Thailand. Funny enough. And it was in Hong Kong, and our team was 100% Thai. Even the kitchen was Thai, and even the dishwashers were Thai. So I couldn't understand their language very well at the time. But it took time, but we kept the staff that was already there. They just needed to brand, modify, look better, serve better, great uniforms, all that sort of fun stuff. It makes a restaurant personal.
Was it hard to explain that with the language barrier?
Not so much. Chefs, again, we all work in kitchens. That was my start in life. And a chef can generally work with another chef, even if languages aren't perfectly together.
Right.
In particular, you're watching hands. It's a hand movement that you work on. And I have to say, the chef that we had, the Thai chef, was a fantastic chef. They just needed some help decorating in terms of the food decoration, preparation, not too much, not too little, not too much of that. So we did a lot of that with those guys.
Okay, I love that. Are you more on the food presentation side or the restaurant aesthetic side?
It used to be, sorry to interrupt you, but I was going to say, I'd say it used to be certainly from the back of house. That's where I got started. Starting as a chef, I thought I was going to be the next famous chef ever. And then I got more involved in just the whole restaurant, generally speaking. And I think it started out with the kitchen and helping presentation there, coming up with menu ideas, making it interesting for customers. However, it got also probably more nowadays, more in the decoration and the look and feel of a place, and plus writing menus. But it's the whole concept. It's the whole thing.
No, it is. Like, your restaurant is so aesthetically pleasing, and
thank you.
You're welcome. You do have it's not a lot going on, but you have a lot of pictures, and it's just a lot, but it's decorated in such a nice way that it flows. And even your food presentations are really good. I did like how concise your menu was. I can tell that food waste isn't huge here.
Yeah, no, that's correct. That's correct. Use it all.
Yes. Okay. What keeps you in the game after 25 years in hospitality? Is it you staying on your toes with new restaurants, wanting to bring new things here? I know you brought this, the Asian pub, to the States and showing that. Is it more of the educational aspect or everything changing?
I have to say this. I think probably the biggest pull for me into this business and keep going on this at this age, I love it, has to do with the people that I'm working with and involved with. It's always the people around me. I never thought that I would spend so much time in talking with people, but I think that's the key element in any restaurant. And we talked about that earlier today.
Yeah.
If I think working with people that you trust. In fact, I always say this to my kids too. You spend more time in a restaurant business working with the people all around you than unfortunately, than you do with your family.
No, you do.
So they have to be nice people for a start.
You do have to kind of like them.
And you don't want people with attitude. You want people, nice people that can interact with other people, and that's what we always do.
With that then, when you are choosing your team and you're hiring, are you more intentional about how you personally connect with them than what's necessarily on a resume, since you do want to keep it?
Good point. I think, to be fair, I think in the kitchen, skill is extremely important. They got to know what they're doing. They've got to have done it before.
1,000%.
At least a lot of it. There's a lot of skill involved in the kitchen. However, front of house, we often hire on personality. Background is important too in certain elements, but I think personality, because this is what your customers see all the time.
For sure.
So I think it's important that the personality is a winner to start with, and you can tell pretty quickly if they're too shy. Sorry, but if
not
you're
going to be the best bartender if you don't want to talk.
Probably not. Whereas I work with some amazing kitchen guys that are not big talkers, and that's okay too, because they don't necessarily need to, but can they produce? Can they get it out on time, and can they crank it out when you get busy? That's what we're looking for. They're all different.
Okay. How do you balance your creativity with the logistics of running restaurants?
That's a good question. I think there's lots of elements involved in all of that. I think that, it's obviously if a restaurant is not making money, it goes out of business. On the other hand, it's the creativity that makes people want to come in. It's the uniqueness that people want to come in. It's personalities that want to come in. It's got to be, working on all elements, I think.
Especially with today, with rising food costs and everything like that.
Right.
How do you offset it business-wise? Because I know food is going up,
Sure.
But you don't want your prices to reflect that, because then people, are cutting back a little bit. Is that hard to balance, or do you have a team that helps you kind of figure that out?
I'd say, for example, and God bless them, I love steakhouses. That's great. And we've opened steakhouses while we were in Asia, funny enough. And I think the hardest part of that is the margin is so tight, not tight, but you charge a lot to your customers, but you know exactly when the price of beef goes up, there's some of your margins right in there. Whereas a restaurant like ours here at Tangs Oriental, there's a lot of snacky, tasty dishes that are small. They're unique. It's almost like a tapas restaurant, quite frankly. We did those also in Asia. But I think the tapas is a great way to get started, because there's a lot of small dishes that don't cost that much. People can they can start without having dinner, just snacks, and then they turn it into their own dinner ongoingly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. You keep going back to Asia a little bit.
Right.
What was your favorite like restaurant type to open there? Was it like more of the tapas, or was it like a full like sit down?
Sit-down restaurants obviously have their own elements involved. I think it was the Spanish tapas and wine bar. It was called Boca. They did very well there, and that was one I didn't know so well when we got started. But the best thing about it was we ended up getting customers, as I said earlier, that just came in for a drink. Then they'd have a snack. Then they'd have one more snack, and then one more snack, and they would stay there for hours at a time when they only just came there for maybe a happy hour drink or something like that, and they would stay forever. Plus, it's the first time we ever hired. We paid more for our front of house than any other restaurant competing with us. But also in our other restaurants that we're operating, we decided we want the front of house staff to be certain incredible personalities. And that was really important. That kind of built the business. The girls were beautiful. They were super nice. But more importantly, they had a great attitude and they could deal with customers that sometimes weren't so easy.
People are people.
That's correct. Amen.
So backing up just a little bit.
Sure.
Do you make all of your drink menus too, as well as the food menus?
Good question. Maybe in terms of concept, a little bit. But generally speaking, we usually use really good people that know what they're doing. And plus, that changes over the years. It's gotten more complex, a lot more scientific than it used to be when I was a younger person.
Craft cocktails have become like a thing.
Absolutely. And I think also it needs to match the concept. We have, for example, our own 3 signature Asian drinks, which, to be fair, were actually somewhat popular already in Asia, but you never find them that much locally here in America. Even some of the Asian restaurants that I've been to here in America don't serve those.
They're very Americanized.
I agree.
They are. Is it hard when you're bringing those kind of traditional staple, like Asian drinks here? Is it hard to get people to try them because they are so used to just like, I just want some sake or something that I'm used to hearing?
I'd say it's actually, to be fair, it's really easy to get people to try these because, first of all, the staff here do a fantastic job with that. They're beautiful, and they've worked on this for a while to make it presentable. Even the glassware is stunning. It has to be a good-looking drink. However, I think some of them have heard the drinks, for example, the Singapore Sling, things like that. We just jazzed it up a little bit because it was, it's an older drink. It's been there forever in Singapore, but we jazzed it up to make it dance out of the bar. It's great.
I love it. Yeah. Okay. Why revive a 1930s Bangkok style pub? What made now the right time?
It's interesting. We obviously are coming up with new ideas in any restaurant direction. And I think for us, we, going back, 10, 15 years ago, we always talked about Tangs Oriental. I knew about this place. It was, funny enough, in Thailand, not in Hong Kong, even though I was living in Hong Kong at the time. And the story came out, and we just kept trying to dig in and understand. And that was early days before the computer had much info. And so we would find old newspapers, old things about Charlie Tang was his name. And he's from Hong Kong. They were a merchant family, came from a merchant family. They did a lot of trading around the world, Cantonese family. The Tang family in Hong Kong. Lots are Tangs still in Hong Kong. And but I think he ended up being educated in the UK, and then he had a girlfriend there. That didn't, I don't think, ended completely. However, he ended up coming back, and he was going to live in Hong Kong, and the family actually suggested he live in Thailand and grow the business.
Okay.
However, instead of trading, he decided, number one, he trained as a doctor in the UK. But he wanted to go in the restaurant business, and he developed that, and he held on to it kind of just right after World War II, all the way through World War I through World War II.
Did you have to get permission from the family to like do this or anything?
We haven't been able to find much out there. In fact, we still don't know the full ending of some of this. We just love the story. It's not 100% our menus. Of course, I did not have copies of their menus, any of that stuff. We developed our own concept and just kind of have a story to kind of get started with, but the rest is kind of our own stuff.
So there are a lot of photos throughout.
That's correct.
Are any including Tang?
That is correct.
Okay.
We have a picture of him and some of his family pictures. Even we have a picture of the old restaurant.
That's so cool.
And that was in Bangkok. But that's the only picture we could find. I wanted to get some interior pictures and all that and make it look what it felt like.
So if anybody can find some pictures, it'd be great for them to send it to you. We'll include your email in here.
Absolutely.
That way they can send it and you can include them. Okay. There is an intentional fusion in your menu. How do you strike the balance without losing cultural integrity?
Good question. I think, first of all, when it comes to food taste, there's a lot of things that are in Asia that Western people don't care for the taste of so much, and vice versa, I think. But we found some of the best dishes, and that's why our menu is really Asian. It's not from one country or another. We took some of the best tasting
From all over.
From all over, and that's what some Asian restaurants that you can find here that are more specific to, let's say, it's a Chinese restaurant or it's a Thai restaurant. Some of those serve some of those similar dishes, but we wanted to put them together where everybody could have a mixture of tasty food here in America that's from Asia, generally speaking.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How much of Tang's is a tribute to Charlie Tang, and how much is your personal signature? I know it was hard to find a lot of stuff.
It was. It's more the concept than it is really the specifics sometimes. And I think, and plus, we all have our own imagination.
Yeah.
And we all have our own creativity. We all think of things differently. I'm sure that we're extremely different and unique compared to what it maybe was originally. Plus, it's a different generation. It's a different era. And we have to approach this because there are everything from, kids to 80-year-old people coming in.
And you kind of want to cater it to all that. I noticed you guys did have the kids menu.
Of course we did.
And it's super cute.
Yes.
So I think you're catering to all those demographics.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's good. What part of Tang's do you think people completely overlook but should pay more attention to?
Well, it's interesting because I've noticed some people come in here and they have spent time to look at some of the pictures and the storytelling, which is great. And some just come here for a drink. That's it. I'm just here to have my cocktail.
I know why I'm here.
And they're here to watch the sports.
Yes.
And they're focused on that. So I kind of have watched it all. For me, we spend a lot of time, of course, on the storytelling and on the decoration stuff.
Yes.
And there have been some people here that take a lot of close-up pictures of some of these interesting things. And then, to be fair, like a lot of Western pubs that you find in Europe, some here in America, they have, photos of what you see in different countries.
Right.
And this is all Asia. So it's kind of fun that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love it. How do you approach flavor differently than most of the chefs or restaurants that are around?
One more time.
How do you approach the flavor? How are you incorporating all the different flavors but still maintaining that good balance?
Sure. It's interesting, again, being in America. For example, I was always at Thai restaurants in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
They would always look at me and say, and I'm hoping they didn't ask me this, but they would say, do you want it spicy or not spicy? And I keep thinking, well, if I say spicy, they're going to burn me up.
Burn my tongue off
and maybe
immediately.
if I say not spicy, it has no taste. So I kind of just said, well, you know what? Just
surprise me.
Present it. And so that was kind of in Asia. But I would say here, I think it's important that the taste can match some of the flavors and some of these, especially the bite of the tongue. If it's too strong, it's not edible for a lot of people. So we're kind of in the middle on a lot of things.
Are there any signature spices or flavor profiles that you really, really like?
I'd say, yeah, all of it. I think one of the most interesting things is actually, because I know it's technically an Asian direction, is our Indian dish that we serve here. It's basically coming from, originally in England, it was popular in all the English pubs. They always served tikka masala. I don't know why. And then, of course, I asked my English friends, and they say, oh, because there's so many Indians living over here.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's a lot.
Yeah, and if you think of America, our number one dish here, I know it sounds weird, is probably Mexican food. Everyone loves that, and my kids love it. We have it at home once a week kind of stuff. But in England, Indian food was super popular, and it was in every pub, tikka masala and other dishes. And so we decided to also put that on the menu here because it's extremely popular in Hong Kong too, because there were a lot of English and a lot of Indians living in Hong Kong.
And I know we had talked a little bit before, but the UK used to own part of Hong Kong, correct?
That is correct.
So did you notice any cultural shifts during that time?
Good question. I think, and the main reason I could get there, I wanted to go to Japan. I couldn't get the visa right off the spot there. So I decided I'll go to Hong Kong. And being naive, I was like, well, where's that? It's close by. Okay, I'll just land. And I got to Hong Kong, and it was easy to get a visa there because it was part of the UK. Mm-hmm. And then after a bit of time, it turned, and I knew it was going to happen because it was in the, I'm going to say 1998.
I was going to ask if you're comfortable with sharing what year was this.
1997. Okay. And it changed into, it was a 99-year lease for the UK. They had that island and that area, and they turned it back to China. And I think there was very little difference at all in the early days. And that's when I had kids. But having kids, and I know over time, Hong Kong changed more and more and more. And of course, a lot of people were visiting from China that never came before, so that was good for business and good for them to see and interact with that stuff. But I needed to move at some point in time, so I sold my business in Hong Kong and moved here. And things, of course, keep changing. Every city, every country changes over time anyway. But of course, it's different.
Do you have, so out of the U.S. and Asia, where are your favorite cities? So like in the U.S., what's your favorite city?
In the U.S., woo, that's a tough one.
I know.
I grew up in the South. Okay. However, I worked in New York City for 5 years, and I loved it both places. It was all different. I mean, it's total chaos and nonstop in New York City.
Go.
Yeah, you got to have energy for that. But I love down South, and I grew up with a whole lot of Southern food and Southern people, and I like the casualness of down here. Plus, I like the niceness of people down South. They communicate. They don't honk when they're angry in the car. It's a different place. But going back to Asia, it's funny enough. I'd say a lot of Japanese food I like a lot. I enjoyed there. I was just a visitor going there to visit, tasting food. I like Vietnam a lot too, though. I spent time there because my previous boss, when I first landed there, wanted to do a 1929 restaurant, and that was an Asian, but it had a French decor inside, French wine, all French, because that used to be part of France back in the day.
There's a lot of like French Vietnamese restaurants.
That is correct.
For sure.
That is correct. And they're around here too now.
Yeah, there is.
Quite stylish, quite beautiful. Yeah.
There is. Okay. What dish on the menu has a hidden story that most people don't know?
Everything is great. No.
Right? I love everything.
Yeah, I don't know about that question. That's a tough one, I have to say. You got me.
Okay, yeah. That's fine. If you could only serve 3 things from Tangs for the rest of time, what would it be and why?
Well, certainly, we talked about this briefly. Because I'm American, and what was interesting, I love burgers. They're all over the world. They're all over the world.
They literally are. They are.
They're not just in America. And the teriyaki burger.
It was so good.
That's my favorite. I love the flavoring that goes onto it. Plus, we use a high level of beef here, which is really nice. Angus always, and we've got the teriyaki burger, and it comes with Asian mushrooms on top as well. That's probably one of my favorite dishes. It's a meal.
All right, so that's one. We need 2 more.
Good question. I like the bang bang noodles. That's really good too, and that's North China. Okay. And those are a unique shape of noodle. I never saw them down in Hong Kong.
I haven't tried them yet. Is it like an egg noodle or?
No, it's not. It's probably egg and rice combination, I guess. But it's a skinny, wiggly type of noodle. Never saw them in here before. So we decided to do that. Plus, it's a great word catch when they say bang bang noodles. Everyone wants to know what it means.
Yeah.
So that's out there. And then I would say our the shrimp fried little noodles that are good. Shrimp things are good in there. There's all the snacky stuff.
I love everything, all my snacks.
I know, it's good.
That's not bad. How do you decide what dishes make the cut on the menu? Is it what you think is going to be like most popular or aesthetics or taste?
I would say a combination of all that, but we did start the menu for the first pre-opening period just to sort of test the market, see who liked what didn't get ordered, and maybe it was the visual, maybe it was the taste. It could have been just the title. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot in that. And anybody who's opened and developed restaurants knows how you craft and write your menu is critical.
It all matters.
And it really does. And of course, sometimes you may have the best dish in the world, but no one orders it because it was written down to bottom, or it wasn't done correctly, or it doesn't say what it says it should say. So we played with that quite a bit. So we modified our menu since opening. Right on the same day of our grand opening, we launched a new menu, which is kind of a more proven and what people like better. So that's kind of, we modified everything and for the first 2 weeks of pre-opening. Because
even when you say like the bang bang noodles, I immediately go bang bang shrimp.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just what you're used to hearing. So I feel like it's hard when people have those like call to actions that you know what's going to happen. It's like, oh wait, I don't know.
That's right.
Because I'm thinking spicy shrimp. So now is it like spicy noodles?
Actually, no, it's a pork dish. It's a smoked pork sliced in there. It comes with a nice soupy sauce at the bottom. And there are lots of ingredients on there, but it's a bit spicy, but it's super tasty.
That's good. What role does the drink menu play in the story of Tangs, and which cocktail do you think best represents you?
Okay, well, cocktails in any pub or bar or restaurant can be it brings people in sometimes for different reasons. It supports also someone who comes in just for dinner, but they want to have a drink. So it's a great combination in that. I think for us here, the bar is extremely important. That's why we've hired great people to help. I can't do that myself.
Yeah.
And we know the the drinks list is fantastic, extremely important, but also we have 3 cocktails that we use that are specific to, again, following up with Asia. When I was in Hong Kong, there are certain drinks that were popular there, and we've used one of those. We've also used one for Singapore, and of course, there's one from Thailand that we also use in those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any like go-to, like when I think pub, I think Guinness. I think you just think of like beer. Is there like a go-to liquor or beer that's like super well-known?
2 things. First of all, in terms of the beer, we went with Sapporo because I like the Japanese beer a lot. They do a great job on beer. There are some breweries all over Asia that are, in fact, there's more Asian beers than you can imagine. Some of them were hard for us to get here in America and serve here in a bottle, but we serve draft Sapporo here, which is fantastic beer. Japanese do great beer. But I think what's the most interesting thing is growing up in Kentucky, whiskey was extremely important.
Say whiskey and bourbon. I mean, you're kind of right there.
Extremely important. And also, you always find that in pubs, but we've got the Japanese have really gotten into whiskey itself. And so we have several different Japanese whiskeys here that people love to try. They always want to try it. And we always have to keep getting more and getting more because that was a surprise. There's some things that when you put on the menu or you serve, you never know.
You're like, I didn't think this was going to be the one.
You don't know what's going to hit. But I think it's interesting that they love the Japanese whiskey.
It sounds like you need to do a Japanese whiskey tasting here.
Oh, and we've talked about that already.
Yeah.
You're on a roll there. That's good.
Because I feel like everybody, like, I immediately go to like sake and warm sake, and I'm like, for me, I just don't care for it that much.
Right.
But you're right. There are like a lot of, to me, I guess they're up and coming because I'm not that familiar with the Japanese whiskeys.
Sure.
But there are so many. Like, I know a lot of people like the hibiki.
Yes.
Do you have like a go-to here?
They're all different for me because I didn't grow up drinking those. I will say what's interesting, they spell whiskey without the E at the end, like the Scottish do, unlike the Irish or the Americans.
Yeah.
So that's unique. But I was going to say the Asahi has become super popular for us. And again, that was a bit of a surprise. And they make sake now a lot better for the American market. There's names for sake that are funny, they're cute, and the size, they now have 1 drink size for 1 person. That's the way to do it, I think.
Okay.
But also, they've got some really fun names of some of the sakes here.
That's super fun. People have to come try it out.
Oh, I know.
You mentioned a little bit on it being hard to like get some things here just from Asia in general.
That's right.
With the climate economically right now and different tariffs and things like that, is that affecting your business at all?
Not yet.
Okay.
But if it gets a little deeper, we'll see. And every country is, I think, from what I've seen on the news, will be different than other countries. I think it's not going to be a fixed thing. And we may have to sort of run this direction if they can supply us product. Certainly some of the more Asian, like the
Asian-specific whiskeys might be a little harder to get.
That's correct. But again, a lot comes from Japan. And so far, I think they're already communicating and trying to work out a deal. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Okay. In your opinion, what makes a guest return not just for the food, but for the feeling? Do you think it's the atmosphere that you've created? Do you think it's the relationship with the service? I feel like living in Atlanta, service is really hard to come by. And when I was here, I had a great experience. Yeah. What do you think is like your standout thing that really keeps the returning guests?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's personality. You got to have people that can interact with people. I think that's key. Nice, friendly customers, staff that want to deal with customers. It's not always easy, as you can imagine. And
especially at a pub.
That's correct. However, you also have a lot of staff that are through the roof fantastic and so nice and so interactive too, which is great. And also was another thing, living in Asia, there wasn't very much interaction between the customer and the servers, almost never. It was seen as a lower level or not so much I'm serving, but you don't communicate at all. And I think that was a big deal. And I learned some lessons when I was living there because maybe I overdid it. Sometimes dealing with some customers, they're like, who are you? What are you doing at my table?
Like, why are you talking? So is it almost like if you're at like a gala and people are just serving you like not banquet style, but like when they walk around with the hors d'oeuvres and stuff, is that almost how the service is?
Yes, it is. That's correct. There's not much communication, I find. And quite frankly, sometimes again, living in America, I want to know, I have questions about the menu. I want to know what's hip, what's good, what's tasty, what don't to order. No one.
What's the most popular?
That's
what's
correct.
Not?
That's what people are asking. And in Asia, that was not common. And that's another reason why our Spanish tapas and wine bar did well because they had great personality in some of the staff that we hired, paid more for it, but they did such an amazing job interacting with our customers and telling them, that's my favorite. I always tell my staff, at least have a favorite.
You have to have at least one or two that are just like, this is my go-to.
That's correct. And it won't go wrong on the customer. You want the customers to be happy, so they come back. But going back to your thing, I think the interaction between staff are probably the most important element of all. Yeah, having good food is critical too. They're all equal, and there's probably thirds involved. And of course, the decoration, even the music is important to choose from. It's all out there.
It's all a curated experience.
It is.
What do you think most restaurant owners get wrong when trying to create like a cool space?
Between you and I, sometimes too cool.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, I made mistakes too when I was, opening new restaurants. Sometimes it was too cool.
Like hopping on every trend that might not last.
Maybe that, or just my own personality as opposed to thinking of my customers' needs.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's important. And sometimes I've been guilty before, back in the day, especially when I was younger.
I like this, well, everybody else will.
Oh, of course. And it doesn't work that way. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, there's sometimes food dishes that we've served, which certainly are not my favorite. And maybe I don't even care for them that much, but maybe it's one of our more popular dishes. But we still serve it because that's what the customer's looking for. And it matches the concept that we're putting it together with.
Have you ever, on the other hand, had to get rid of like one of your favorite dishes?
Absolutely.
And how hurt were you?
Not hurt at all. No, I think you can't take this stuff personally.
You're like, it is what it is.
No, we put menus that were my favorite dishes, but if it doesn't get ordered, we modify probably the menu to make it put in a different location on the menu because that's critical.
Yeah.
It's like when you go into a supermarket, they put some dishes on shelves which they want you to buy, and some is way up here.
Some are featured, some are...
That is correct. And same on the menu too, how that's created. So we've obviously, but if it doesn't sell, we've got to move it out.
But I think that speaks to your character though, because I think a lot of businesses do fail because they are focused on like them and what they like versus what the customer wants. So I think that speaks really highly of your character.
You're too kind. I have done some consulting, and I've noticed that it's so hard to make sometimes changes with people that either own the place or the head chef or somebody. This is the way
people get very married to their ideas.
They certainly do, and I think that's where it can bring your business down if you're living in that dream too much.
Are you still offering consulting now? Like if people want to hire you and bring you in?
Yeah, I'm always doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
For restaurants and bars, or just any business?
Any business, but mostly it's all restaurant driven.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole restaurant, not just bar stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have like a specific like restaurant that you like to consult with, or like a type of restaurant? Do you prefer like pubs or fine dining, or?
I'd say all types because they have all different elements. Some are casual, some are quick service, some are stylish, but they need to know there's because you want to keep people coming back and keep them coming in. Without that, it doesn't stay in business.
It's definitely at that point a hobby that's just costing you if you're not profitable.
That's correct. And sorry to interrupt you, but there are a lot of people that got into the restaurant business for the wrong reasons. Could have been their personality. They thought, well, I'm so-and-so. They're all going to come in for this. And I've seen that happen before. And they've spent lots of money on these things. And they think the more money they spend, it's certainly going to bring in more people.
Yeah, like these couches are $5,000. People are going to love it. Nobody cares about the couch.
No,
they don't.
It's the whole experience.
It is.
And sometimes it's the wrong reason why they get into the business in the first place.
It's always interesting to me when people are like, I have a great business idea. It's going to be so profitable. It's a restaurant.
That's right.
I'm always like, I don't want to be the person to like pop the bubble, but
that's right.
It takes a while. What do you think is like, how long would you tell somebody to expect a return on their investment in a restaurant industry, like in the business?
Yeah, America is different because we have longer leases, for example. Whereas in Hong Kong, the leases, we'd start with 2 to 3 years, and then you have to renew it, and the rent would just go up. And we did a quick on the back of a napkin. If we can't make our money back in, say, 2 years, don't touch it. Don't go there. And let's watch that happen. And of course, it didn't always work, but that's generally was our model. If we can't make our money back in 2 years, after that would be profit for everybody who invested. But for here, you can have a 10, 20-year lease on some things. That's great. So it can last longer if you're a good restaurant operator and make some money on that. It's different.
So how long, if somebody has the great idea to invest in the restaurant business, how long would you tell them it's going to take, just industry standard, for them to make their money back? I hear 5 to 7.
It depends. I think in terms of getting money back is great, but I think being positive, if you can open a restaurant and become positive in terms of cash flow, that's key. After that, you can tweak, you can do other things, but just getting to where you are at least standing alone and not having to borrow money and do more to it, that would be ideal.
How long do you think that takes the average restaurant owner?
Maybe in terms of breaking even and not losing, probably 3, 6, could be longer, but I'd say after 6, it starts to be very difficult.
So it's definitely not like a quick profit.
No.
What do you think about the food trucks as opposed to opening just a restaurant?
They work. Again, going back to Asia, that wasn't allowed in Hong Kong when I first got there because we thought we're watching, the news and we're seeing what's going on in America. I said, let's do food trucks.
Yeah.
Cool. And they would not allow it. It was just part of the government would not allow food trucks.
Is it like emissions? Is it cleanliness? What's the?
It's a lot of things.
Okay.
It's a lot of things. But they wouldn't let. Now then they allowed. I remember they allowed food trucks. 5 only, and they wanted to test the market and see how it worked. And it was a lottery to who could get in the food trucks. Of course, we didn't get one, but it was interesting to watch that happen. Whereas in America, food trucks work very well here. They come to different locations. They're mobile, which is great.
Yeah.
If they're at not a stadium, but like a field or whatever,
football, basketball, anything, or just outside.
Yeah, that's correct, and that's really popular. I think sometimes. In my opinion, I love when they are very specific about what they sell. They just do this, and they do it well, and they just crank it out. Sometimes if they try to be too broad spectrum, like a full restaurant, probably doesn't work. You can't.
So you feel like lock in, have probably 5 or 6 good menu options, and just be done.
And you do great with it. That's correct.
Okay.
It's not a restaurant.
That's a great business advice, though. Yeah. I appreciate it.
There you go.
In your experience across Asia, what roles does showing sports or other entertainment play in creating a successful pub atmosphere?
I won't say everything, but that's a lot of, and I said earlier, that's the reason a lot of people come in the first place. Well, I'm going to have to watch, I want to watch that game. Where do I go? So that's their first thought in mind already. They're going to watch the Super Bowl. Where am I going? Going to meet my friends, all that stuff. The great thing also about in an environment like a pub that's got sports on the monitors, unlike a normal restaurant, is that people can come in here by themselves and sit here at the bar and watch the game. They're focused into something else other than themselves, and they've got no other people with them to interact with, like you and I are talking right now. So they can sit here and they don't feel strange to sit here by themselves and watch a great game on there. And usually they end up talking to the person next to them. Hey, that was a great shot or a great hit or whatever they did. There's interaction already on the bar itself, and that can grow and grow and grow. Whereas a normal restaurant, unless they have a great bar component with good monitors and showing sports, that can't happen in a restaurant. No one's going to go to a fine dining restaurant usually by themselves and just sit and watch the game. Unless they have a game going on. Yeah. So it's better.
In Asia, I know we spoke off camera a little bit, but I was really surprised to hear about like the sports and the pubs in general.
That's right.
So with the sports, what do they typically show in Asia on the sports? Like what is their like main go-to? I'm pretty sure they're not just watching American football.
Well, actually, and we talked about this, I think it's interesting because in Hong Kong, it was a 12-hour time difference completely upside down. And there's 2 things going on. First of all, American football, the only place it really plays is in America.
Yeah.
Whereas soccer is worldwide and certainly become more popular here in America, which is great to see. So my kids like to play. But when I was a kid, we didn't have soccer in America.
Right.
When I was a youngster. However, in Asia, they love, in particular, European soccer. So that's probably our biggest thing on the screen in sports bars all over Asia. The UK in particular, English, of course, is big. But also, believe it or not, so is rugby. That's a big deal. And don't ask me why cricket. I don't know if you know that sport or not.
Yes, cricket is.
It's sleepy.
Yeah.
We showed it in some of our sports.
I'm not a fan, but I know there's leagues here in Atlanta. I know it's a thing.
I know, but we showed it in our sports in different monitors and try to show a little bit of everything because some people just want to come have their beer and maybe snacks or whatever and watch that and bring in friends. It's an interaction amongst people, which is important.
Do you guys do anything here specifically, like on game nights? Like, do you do any? So, what do you guys have?
Well, in particular, the sport, because this is Atlanta, we have our own, our own soccer.
Our own everything.
Exactly. It's a big city, so you have your own everything. So we can do a lot of that here, be specific. We're a little bit cautious about being too specific on other teams and other cities of their favorite football teams, for example, because you don't want to turn anybody off.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of like, if there's a baseball game, do you guys do like any specials just so people can know to come?
We have done that, yes. In particular, a lot of it, believe it or not, comes in at happy hour. Good luck. That's great. However, and late night stuff is a little different too. But again, the football games, believe it or not, probably brings in the most people.
Really?
Yeah, people love that to see. And there's not as many, baseball has so many more games out there, whereas professional football, I don't know the number, maybe 14 games in a year.
14 versus like 3 a week with baseball.
That is correct.
Like so it's crazy, and they're back to back to back.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. This is the new sports spot.
That's it.
If you could collaborate with any non-food brand, who would it be, and what would you create together?
A non-food brand. Believe it or not, one thing I really like, and I won't name drop here, but you can probably imagine, there is one restaurant in America that does a great job of serving other products than just food and drink.
Okay.
And I think if you could mix in more of that into your business, I think it would be our restaurant here is
what's an
small.
example of something that they have?
They have everything from toys for the kids to play with.
Oh, that's super cool.
They also have clothing. It's not for me, but it's for other people, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They also have snacks, candies, things like that to bring in the family.
Oh, that's
things
super
like that.
fun.
And that's, you know, and some other restaurants do smaller parts of it. Sometimes they serve, I've seen other restaurants serve in their own, they sell their own products that are t-shirts. What's the one? Hard Rock Cafe. They make a lot of money on their t-shirts and other things that people come in. Sometimes people probably spend more money on their retail side than they do to have a drink or a dinner.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things out there, but I think that's an interesting element to put into a restaurant.
Would you ever come up with your own like liquor?
You could, and a lot of people
Would
have
you?
done that too. Yes, absolutely. That's
You'd be open to that?
Pardon me, yeah. Absolutely. I think it has to do with scale. You know, any of this stuff has to do with scale, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and we're looking to perhaps grow this business and multi-unit this ourselves. And when we start to do that, it will certainly be part of the direction.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of expanding, when expanding and looking at expanding, how do you evaluate opportunities and locations? Like what made you pick this, for example?
It was a good environment to be in. We like the people that already operate this location. The Politan Row guys are great. They've been extremely helpful. And also, I think to be deeper and better, because they're restaurant people, they speak the same language that I speak. And they've been very helpful with all of this. And that was a good start. Basically, this is our prototype, if you will, to get started. I really wanted to test the market. It's a given market inside here, which is great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I love the food hall idea because especially if you're like a newer business, you don't have to worry about drumming up your own foot traffic.
Correct.
And like, this is in a great location. You're around a lot of different stores. So you can just have people that walk around and are like, oh, I didn't know what this was. Yeah. Or what is this? And then they come in. So
and
that's good too.
I've seen a lot of customers come in and eat something else. And then they look at us and go, oh, what do they want? Let me see your menu and that kind of stuff. And then they come back and they've just given us a try.
And even a drink could turn into food depending on how long you sit.
That's
not bad either.
Yeah.
Do you see Tangs as, well, yeah, you'd replicate this.
Absolutely.
This idea instead of just keeping this one.
That's correct.
Would you make like a different version, like instead of an Asian pub, would you do like a different kind of pub, or you would stick with the...
It would certainly be modified, and I'll tell you why. Being in a food court like this, obviously there's certain things that we shouldn't be serving because somebody else is doing it here.
Right.
When you're a standalone business, you create the best that you can do for your whole concept. And I think we would certainly modify on an outside location.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would be modified for sure. Serving dishes that you may or may not be able to see here, but we don't want to obviously rock the boat.
Yeah, you don't want to step on anybody's toes.
No, that's
You're
correct.
next to a fried chicken place. You don't want to start selling fried chicken.
That is correct.
It doesn't work.
That's
okay.
correct.
What's one trend in food or hospitality that you're secretly rooting for and one that you want to see disappear? Everything I feel like is so trendy and like a hit now hot spot.
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, I'm not going to tell you which ones I think I don't want to see them disappear. It's not my nature. We've all tried, and some things succeed, and you can't imagine how did that happen.
But how is this popular?
That's correct. However, I think it's interesting. I think I've always loved the fine dining element because I love the detail and some of that stuff. But I do know, and having worked in a fine dining background a good early part of my life, and having studied at Cordon Bleu and thinking I was going to be this fancy chef and stuff, some of those fine dining things don't last as long. They're cool today and trendy today, but they're gone
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, that's correct. Oh, they want to go to the customers in that market want to jump from being what this is cool today, and then they go see then they're
just trend hopping.
They move quickly. That's correct. Whereas some casual dining can last, I won't say indefinitely, but it generally lasts a lot longer than fine dining. Is
there anything else that you want to share or that you want people to know about you or your business before we close?
Good question. No, I just think it's because it's a new concept in terms of Asian pub. We'd like to grow this business, and of course, we want people to come and give it a try and find out what works, and we'll also learn from them. That's the way you learn mostly from your customers, quite frankly.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking time.
Well, thank you for coming
by.
by.
Of course, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for everyone else, if the next time that you are in Dunwoody or Perimeter, please come to Polititan Row and check them out. They are straight ahead, down in the back on the right corner, right before you make it to the speakeasy. It is a great experience. Tag us. We will include all of their social medias, websites, and everything. Please be sure to come in and tell him that you came from the Bridge Views. Bye, guys.